going live. There might be a delay, so you might see that it's live before I see that it's live. So
yeah,
we should be live.
We're live.
We're live?
We're live!
Okay, perfect. Okay. So hello. Welcome to the Escondido Public Library Virtual Author Chat Series. This Spotlight genre episode is sponsored by the Friends of the Escondido Public Library and in partnership with Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore, where you can purchase copies of the books by the authors. Select books will come with signed book plates. You can find more information on the Mysterious Galaxy website. I'm your host, Jessica Buck, and today I am joined by authors Kellye Garrett, Rachel Howzell Hall, and Valerie Wilson Wesley. I am so happy to welcome you because this is our first chat with mystery authors.
Yay.
And I am so excited.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yes. And before we get to the questions, I'm just going to introduce the authors to everyone. And I'm just trying to make sure that I have the chat up. Just in case. Yes, there we are. Okay. So Kellye Garrett's Hollywood Homicide, about a semi-famous, mega broke Black actress, woohoo, there it is, won the Anthony, Agatha, Lefty, and Ippy, is that how you say it? For the best, Ippy for the best first novel. It's also one of BookBub's top 100 crime novels of all time. The second Hollywood ending was featured on the Today Show's Best Summer Reads of 2019 and was nominated for both Anthony and Lefty Awards. She serves on Sisters in Crime's National Board and is a co-founder of Crime Writers of Color. Her next project is an Own Voices domestic suspense novel about a woman looking into the overdose death of a one-time reality star found within blocks of her house, her own estranged younger sister. Learn more at kellyegarrett.com. And I'll post the links into the description of the video for everyone. Mm-hmm. Our next author, Rachel Howzell Hall, author of the bestseller and Anthony Award, Lefty Award, and I guess ITW Award nominated They Fall Down, writes the acclaimed Lou Norton series, including Land of Shadows, Skies of Ash, Trail of Echoes, and City of Saviors. She is also the co-author of The Good Sister with James Patterson, which was included in the New York Times bestseller, The Family Lawyer. She is currently on the board of directors for the Southern California chapter of Mystery Writers of America and is a Pitch Wars mentor for 2020. She lives in...
Uh-oh.
Did she freeze again?
Oh,
I think she did.
And now she's gone, just came out a few weeks ago. That's what she was about to say.
And Jessica's gone, so it's very appropriate. So Valerie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, there she is.
Are you back,
I
Jessica?
think she's back.
No. I don't think she's back. Well, Valerie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, there's quite a bit to say. Oh, wait, she really has gone.
There she is.
Are you back, Jessica?
No.
Well, it's always embarrassing.
It's cool. We have the questions. We got this.
Yeah, You know,
I'll pull the questions up.
Yeah,
Valerie is a legend.
Yes, a legend for
Thank
sure.
you.
And she is the author of the Tamara Hell series.
Thank you all very much.
Jessica, there you go.
I love the legend bit. Thank you, my dear.
You are though. Like you
we were about
to. Thank you. It makes me. You know, that's one thing. You around long enough, sooner or later, you do become. She's gone again. But it really means a lot to me to hear that you read my books and enjoyed them, and that I had some impact. And I just really.
I will say, I think when it comes to especially Black women in crime fiction, because Tracy Clark and I were talking about this, you're like one of the reasons why I know I personally write books.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tracy was saying the same thing too. And, Tamara Hale, so the Tamara Hale mysteries are about a Black woman PI in New Jersey. And I think they came out 94, Valerie?
I think so, with first.
Yes. And so I I was a teenager at that time. And, you know, and I like to see that book and see a Black woman, to see her in New Jersey too. Like I recognized 280, and I would recognize like the towns that you were talking about. Like that's the reason why I know I can write books, is because you were doing it.
Thank you.
At a time that was important for me.
It means, you know, it just means so much to me to hear you say that. And I, you know, is she back? Are you?
I can't. No, I don't think.
But yeah, I love writing the Tamara Hale series, and of course, I've written another book. I wrote 2 paranormals under the name Savannah Wells. I've written children's books. You may, as a child, remember the Wilhelmina Rules series, which is children. Book of Black Heroes, with Afrobet's Book of Black Heroes was one of the first books. So I've been around a while, and I've been writing for a very long time.
And the fact you have that career is amazing.
But I think what the joy too is, frankly, being here with the 2 of you, reading your books, and just realizing how, I mean, it's really how amazing, what amazing writers you are.
Thank you. That really means a lot.
Really, I'm very, you know, and it's just a great, you know, just a great compliment. I think A Glimmer of Death, though, my new book, and it's coming out in January. So what I've done is, the old days, I used to tell you to put the cover they send you on a book, and I'll hold it up so you can see. Yeah, different, I guess. Have I done it? No, anyway.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
I have it upside down. Anyway,
about it. Let's talk about
it's. You know, it's a cozy, and a cozy is a very different kind of book than The Eyes. It's kind of and I love the character Odessa Jones, who is a desperate young widow whose husband been killed, well, dropped dead. He wasn't killed. He had a brain tumor. Well, an anorexia. Anyway, he dropped dead. And she's a caterer who now works as a realtor. And the book is basic and with a bunch of odd coworkers, but she has a sixth sense, and she can hear and smell and see and kind of know things that other people don't know. And it's always getting her in trouble because it's never right. And I've tried to give a sense of, first of all, what it is to cope with that kind of loss, but also just how you can make it and you can do. And she's a survivor in the same way that Tamara Hale was.
Wow.
She's a little softer, and she has a cat, which has given me a chance to write about my grandson's cat, and she cooks, and I like to cook, and it's given me a chance to plan menus. And so all of these are components that I wasn't, you know, that didn't really have in the Tamara Hale series, but it's been a joy to write. And the thing about cozies, there's no graphic violence, and and that's kind of a relief. Not a lot of cursing, and no hardcore, which my books were like, oh my God, banned in Texas at one point, the first ones, but that's part of the genre, and this is a much softer genre, a cozy.
No,
that's the first thing I started reading when I was when I was like 11. I was reading like Joan Hess, and that's people think my book's a cozy, even though it might not be, because it doesn't have like a lot of the different tropes in it, you know. But like if you like mystery novels and you don't want gore and torture, because there's a James Patterson book that I read when I was like 20-30 years ago that like still disturbs me because it was so graphic, and so cozies are able to me, like they're beach reads, but for mystery lovers.
And I think I'm right in the middle, because while I will drop all kind of F-bombs and curse and have bodies, I don't like torture porn. I don't like hurting people for the sake of titillation in some ways. Even in my descriptions of violence, I try to be as respectful and put as much as needed instead of
you're good with that.
Everybody. I'm not trying to shock anybody. I don't think violence is funny. I don't think it's, there's a I love the way you deal with it, Rachel. You're there, but you're not delving into it. It's like it's a very good way to. And I know when I've written a couple of very graphically violent scenes in the Tamara Hales, and they were very hard to write. Because
it takes you forever to write a book. Like to me, like you're writing a book I write a book in a year. And so that's a long time. So I might read a book in like, a week, but to write a book, I don't want to be trying to torture somebody for like a month.
And it's just to imagine it, to make it real. It's,
Well, and that's where I think humor also comes in. I mean, I
Yes, you're
remember in my earlier days trying to land another book deal after A Quiet Storm, and editors not understanding my voice. I mean, back then I could barely understand my own voice, but even then I was still very much dark humor, and they didn't like that. But I still do it, and it's working, because I think we all, especially now, we need to laugh sometimes, because if we don't, we fall into these pits of despair and we will never get back up. And just historically, as Black people, we laugh when people think you should be serious. Well, we are being serious, but now we're laughing right now because it's crazy.
I think for both of you, but that's a very good point, Kellye. Both of your books, and Kellye, I must say, that you're like the queen of the similes. I mean, I love all the comparisons you have. They've written a couple down, but it's important to bring that kind of levity and humor into our lives.
Yeah.
We've had enough tragedy, my God, without constantly, having to read about it. But at the same time, you want the books to be realistic. And
Right. Yeah.
And I think for me, because I write lighter stuff, whenever she's to me legitimately scared, I don't try to make jokes. I feel like in the realistic thing, like if she's like running and she's like someone's trying to kill her, she's not going to be like, oh, let me make this quippy joke, and I think a lot of times,
no, it's real,
especially with men, like the tough men who write these like tough men guys, like they come in and they like shoot everyone and they make the jokes, and you're like, that's not realistic.
That's not real.
Like
yeah. I know for me and Now She's Gone, it deals with a heavy subject. It's a book in the realm of domestic abuse. And, you can still, in the moment, you're right. I don't have Gray say something quippy and witty and all that, because it's just scary. See, I just dropped a curse word right there. But it is. And, maybe afterwards, when you're trying to come down off of it, like in real life, you find some random thing that just kind of draws your attention away. And so I do that for her, and I do that for the characters, because again, you have to. I think it's pacing, of course. It's not important for me to show a reader how smart and clever I am, just for the sake of saying, watch me crack this joke. Everything is earned. I want to earn every joke, every dark place, every F-bomb. I want to earn it.
It's one thing about writing a cozy. It's very pleasant. I mean, there's not a lot, because I know don't have to deal with that kind of graphic violence, and that's a relief in a way with this kind of, for me, writing this different kind of book. And
so, Valerie, what made you decide to go to write the cozy after having written so many different genres?
Well, I enjoy doing different kinds of books, like with the paranormal, certainly, with the standalone books, which I've done, even the children's books to a certain extent. And it was suggested that I try it. And I had thought that I would just, why not try a cozy? And I said, I think I'll try that and see how it works.
How'd you get the idea for it?
Yeah. I'm always bursting with ideas. I had another idea, which I would love to turn into. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But, the more you write, of course, you both know, the more the characters come, the more you know about the characters. And that, for me, is the joy of writing.
Yeah.
It's creating the characters. It's hearing their voices and understanding this is what goes into who these people are. And if I could just write all day and read, of course.
Oh my gosh.
That's all I would do. I mean, I really, it's a joy. You look up and you're sitting there and your legs are stiff and you can.
No, not me. Not me at all.
Oh my God. But even
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I hate writing.
Oh yeah. I love it. Even the hard parts. Like right now I am working on the book that comes out after the book next year. And it's first draft, and I hate first draft almost as much as I hate second draft. I like third and fourth, where it actually becomes art. But I was gonna say, even with whatever genre of mystery and crime you write, fortunately, what we write about, we will always have material to pull.
Yes, that's very true.
People will be, will be awful forever. We'll hurt each other until the end of time, and that's our job to show that,
and to be with the characters that you write, to layer them in such a way that people can see how this could happen.
Yeah.
Rachel, how did you come up with the idea for Now She's Gone? I've never asked you that. Like, how did you get that idea for this new book?
So I've
Now She's
always,
Gone.
after A Quiet Storm came out in 2002, I started writing a story. Domestic violence has always been like a thing in my head that I wanted to write. And I started writing this story, and it was called The Flight of Venus. And it was named after a trick Harry Houdini did, and it was his disappearing woman. And so I wanted to make a woman disappear. But back then, when I was a baby writer, I didn't know how to write it, and it was strictly a domestic suspense novel, and it didn't work. But I kept it because baby writers out there keep all your stuff.
Keep your drafts.
Yeah,
keep everything.
But it wasn't until I started writing the Lou books and learning how to write procedurals, and you're dying a day. Oh, Dying
in the Dark.
Thank you. Dying in the Dark. That was the one that I highlighted and book-eared and dog-eared.
Oh, thank you.
That's how I learned.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I learned how to write a procedural. And so after learning that and finally hitting those 1 million words that they say that you have to hit before you finally understand how to write, I learned that, okay, I can nest this domestic story around a procedural story, and that's how it came to be. It was an old idea of a woman who needs to disappear.
I think that's what I love about it. Now She's Gone, because like Rachel let me, I think I begged you to read it like a year or two ago before you even sold it.
Yeah.
And I've read it like 2 or 3 times since then. It's great because it mixes that, and you don't really see that a lot where you mix those 2 different genres, which is interesting because they're such prominent genres in crime fiction,
Yeah. Well, it's and it's, we as especially Black writers and Black women writers, we don't get to experiment like that a lot. I mean, Valerie, you can speak to this totally. There's a box, and we need to fit the box, and if you don't,
that's very true,
box, then you can't do it. And so it was great that my editor's like, I like these kind of nesting, one genre in the other. So I'm glad it worked. It was difficult in terms of pacing because there are 2 different stories.
One thing that I found with my books are also in Germany and France and Great Britain, and my German publisher is Swiss. He's a Swiss publisher. And I couldn't believe when they approached me about publishing the Tamara Hales in Germany that, but they were like, we write for you, everyone, we're not going to put you in this particular hole. And it's really, to see them come out in a different way, that too was just very important for me as a writer.
Yeah.
To have gone there and to have done, not so much now because the books have been out a long time, but Diogenes was my publisher, and Daniel Keel, who has since passed away. And just really, again, looking beyond where people put you. I just, when they first said, like, oh no, there are no, how many Black folks are there in Germany? But of course, you have an international thing.
I think that
I was asking you, what do you think about, how your books fit and that box, and kind of not fitting in that box, but kind of?
I think so. For me, I think my issue is that white people can have an issue book, and then they can have a really badly written book, and they can have a beach read, and they can have this and that, and we can't. Like if we're writing about Black people, it has to be about being Black, which I don't, I'm Black, and it's a very important part of my life, but it's not the only thing about me. It definitely informs everything I do because I'm a Black woman, and I'm proud of that. And so I just wanted to write a beach read. I wanted to write a Janet Ivanovich book that with a Black, and I write Black girls because I'm a Black girl. My mom and who I think my mom's watching. Hi, mommy. My mom and my sister and my auntie and my niece, everyone, they're all we're Black women. So I wanted to see, my family and my people in these books, and I was so naive when I was writing my book because there weren't any cozies with Black women at that time, and I'm like, oh, obviously no one wrote them before, that's not the case, at all, that we're writing them, and unfortunately publishing can not be always, it's kind of cruel to us sometimes as Black people. So then after I sold my book, I found Alexia Gordon, she came out with her book the year before, which is a paranormal And then V.M. Burns and Patricia Sargent, they came out with their books. I think Patricia's Olivia Matthews, their cozies, you know, and then now we have Valerie. So it's kind of like they're slowly starting to see that, you know, we can have different type of genres within crime fiction, you know, as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really essential to us as writers and to readers, everyone.
Right. I mean,
change your readers, and that's important.
Right now, I'm hoping that, you know, people who we've all been quarantined and we've all been looking at ourselves and the cameras and everything. And I'm hoping that readers are tired of seeing themselves in books and that they will say,
give this a try.
Let me pick up this Kellye Garrett book. Let me pick up Valerie's book. Let me pick up my book so that I can see a different kind of life. So I can see someone else being miserable.
And I think that, like Rachel and I, we did a talk recently. We kind of discussed this. That it's interesting, and people act like, oh, like I'm white and I can't connect with another, like a marginalized person, a character who's gay, or a character who's a person of color, or you know has other issues. But it's like you can read science fiction and connect with someone who's an alien. Right. You know, or you could connect with wizards and witches, but why can't you connect with an actual other person? You know, so I kind of think people need to stop kind of putting themselves in boxes.
Yeah.
That's important.
I would say like And Now She's Gone, which deals with domestic abuse. I would posit that it doesn't matter if you're, you know, pushing a Benz or, you know, a Dodge, your husband or your partner pops you. It doesn't matter. You're trash to them. And if that doesn't transcend race and class and all the rest of it, then I don't know what to say to you. And I'm hoping, and it sounds like, you know, a lot of women especially are connecting with that and connecting with Gray, who's kind of an every woman, you know, who hasn't gone into a job interview with, you know, they spilled coffee on themselves right before an interview, or you have a poppy seed right here, you have a zit like mine, which is right here, and you're unbalanced, you know, you just can't get it together because you feel less than. So I'm hoping that you know helps some readers to say, there are things in here for me. Just because I don't look like the author. There are things here for me.
Valerie, what about you? Like, what do you want readers to take away from your stories, especially like with this new one, Glimmer of Time?
I think just a good story, and again, just an appreciation for a character well drawn. You want people to feel like, in a sense, they got their money's worth. You know, you put down whatever you're putting down, and it's just really essential to me to be able to give readers that. They have them come away with, thank you, this was a good read. This took me out of my world for a while. Again, for me, in terms of just being published in having readers, German women, come up and really identify with it, which was very strange for me with the characters, and really love her, and particularly love Basil Dupre, because they were all into Basil. But what about him? When are you writing about him again? But I think, again, our books are a good character is a good character. And a well-drawn, a well-written book is just always just that. And I think that it's the publishers or whoever is doing who put it into, or us as writers into a particular place. And we just ignore that and write the best thing we can write in.
Right. What about you, Kellye? What do you want?
I think I just want people to have a beach read, and just to say like that was like a good, I don't know, week of my time, like laughing, you know. And, and I hope that my books have good plots. I mean, I think they have great plots. You know, so I kind of want them to be like, oh, I didn't see that coming, you know, because honestly, like my favorite
in those stories, did you have the character first or did you have the plot? What came first?
So for Dana, this is how I had the idea. I was living in LA and I was working in TV, and I'd gotten fired and I was like dead broke. And if you go to LA, there's billboards that are like reward for like murder, information on a murder. And at the time I was like so broke, I like drove past the billboard and it was like information on a murder. And I go, I should try to solve that for the money, which is like the dumbest idea you could possibly have. But I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea for a book. And so that was the idea, that this character, and of course she can't be a Black woman writer, so I made her an actress, you know, who's kind of very, you know, in this crossroads of her life, because Dana doesn't know what she's doing in her life. And when I wrote that book, I didn't know what I was doing in my life. And kind of like she wants to save her parents' house, and she kind of has realized that she's driven past this hit and run. So that's where the idea came from. And then the character, I guess, kind of was based on me. If you like her, she was totally based on me. If you don't like her, she's not based on me. You know,
she's a delightful character.
Exactly. Thank you. And then totally based on me. You know, so that's where it came from. Just the fact that I was so lost and confused and at a crossroads in my life. I think I was like early 30s and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. You know, in the second book, it was harder because I was more established and I was happier, and Dana was not in that place yet. So writing her was different in that second book because we were not in the same place where we were in the first book. So
Valerie, for Tamara, was that you? Were those aspects of you? I mean, where do you?
For me, every character has a bit of you in it. For me, anyway. No, Tamara was first of all a single mom with a son. I had 2 grown daughters. I was at Essence at the time. I was executive editor for a number of years, and I think for me,
you're saving me.
Being around so many women who were so tough and so strong, and being in that presence and getting letters from women who were dealing with things, it kind of opened me up to a world that I was not necessarily a part of, but I was able to understand, which is why I think for me, what went into creating this character. My sister was raising a son at the time by herself, and I also got that sense from my sister Pat, who was really crucial in my understanding all of the things that go into that. My daughter is now raising a son, mostly by herself, and that too has kind of that too. Not then, of course, this is years later, but I think I got a lot of it right, and I'm happy that I did. And my readers would often say, "You really understand." My mother was not abusive, as Tamara's was, and so but these again you create characters. Odessa Jones, on the other hand, I think are few more pieces of me. Likes to cook. She's a cat. But except of course that she has a psychic aunt, and she's psychic herself.
You're not psychic?
I'm not psychic. No. But I can only imagine how it would be to be able to see and feel and smell and know things that people don't know. Particularly in her case, she can't depend on it. It didn't tell her her husband was going to die. And so her whole life has been coping with this loss and trying to find out, where do I fit in this now? And so that is, but for me, the characters, and most of the characters that I created, certainly in the paranormals, they're bits, and you use a little bit of yourself, for me anyway, but not too much. And I've never, for example, I hate guns. Tamara was good with a gun. I didn't know anything about guns. In fact, my first book, I was out on a book tour, and I have a line saying that there was a hole the size of she was shot him with a .38. There was a hole in his head the size of a quarter, and the reader said, "You got that wrong, lady."
No. This is like pre-Google.
Blew his head off. And so this little bit of I didn't know, sitting an editor in a magazine,
Yes, and there are some readers who are very eager to tell you what you get wrong.
And I have had my share. And frankly, I always appreciate it, because after that, I never made that mistake again.
Yeah.
Rachel, what about you? What, like, you've written so many different strong characters. Are they similar to you? Who's like the most similar to you, Rach? Who's not?
I would say Lou is the most similar to me. She, she grew up in my neighborhood, in my building, and went to the schools that I went to. She pledged the same sorority. She went to Santa Cruz. After that, that's pretty, and she has great girlfriends. She's way more braver than I, and cares more about people than I could ever do. And her marriage is a mess, unlike mine. But I was
gonna say not yours,
but she's, she's smart, and she's definitely more charismatic than I could ever be. But yeah, I would say
you're pretty charismatic.
Oh, thank you. I'm faking it.
You're doing a good job.
But there are pieces of Miriam Macy that are me. Lou doesn't have kids, but Miriam has one daughter.
So tell us who Miriam is.
Miriam from They All Fall Down. That's my homage to Agatha Christie's And Now She's Gone. Wait, no, sorry. And Then There Were None.
Yeah.
And Miriam is one of 7 visitors on an island who are brought there for some mysterious reason. And And Then There Were None. They all die in some very mysterious ways. So Miriam is there. She's a mom. She's a fierce mom. She's a lady of a certain age, and she doesn't understand why she's there. Her daughter was bullied and she handled it. And in that way, I am, like her. I am very protective of my daughter. I haven't done any crazy thing yet, but I love my kid, and I could see myself losing my mind because someone hurt her. So we're very similar for that. I hope, I don't wind up on some beautiful remote island off the coast of Mexico because of her, but yeah. What about you, Kellye? You see yourself, well, I guess you are Dana in some ways.
I see myself in Dana, and then this current book I'm doing is not like all my books are gonna have sarcastic main characters just because I'm like super sarcastic, but she's not me. She's based on family. No one who's listening though, but she's based on probably more family than me, but she's not me. So so I guess another question, do you guys how's your research process? Do you guys do any fun research? I know Valerie was just saying she got the gun wrong, so like
oh well, I guess certainly for a glimmer of death, I've had to do a lot of research about poisons, which is something
so your Google search history is not as
I mean, and it's led me into all different kinds of places, things you would never imagine, which I think I'll use for us, because a cozy also, by definition, you're not going to have a gun shooting anyone. You can't, of course. But this particular cozy, she's cooking for one thing, and so that'll come in handy. For the paranormals, I really had to do a lot of research on I guess it's called what is when you're shape shifting, which was shapeshifters, and it's amazing how many places there are on the web for this kind of stuff. Scary, the paranormal world. So sometimes it's fun. In this one, in A Glimmer of Death, it's recipes. It's is a social worker, also a caterer. So and also a realtor, my youngest daughter. So a lot of things that I've gotten from her advice. So, and that's been fun to talk to her about her world.
Are there recipes in your book?
I have one. Yes.
Okay. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends who write cozies and like write books of like culinaries, and so they're always. And I was like, oh yes, you have to figure out the recipes yourself.
Like, really? Well, you test them. Recipes are funny. You have to, when you can, but recipes, once it's done, you can change a few things in your recipe. So, but you kind of run that, you can't really steal them because there's certain things that are classic, like potato salad. How do you, copyright potato salad? Right. So everyone has their own little touch, and as a caterer, has
put in raisins. Yeah,
and that's fun. That's fun.
I don't cook that much, and so I guess I'm like I probably could never do a culinary. I remember one time I had to do an event with Valerie Burns, and she does culinary, and so I had to like have a recipe, and I'm like, Valerie, I don't have a recipe. She found one for me, like she gave me the recipe.
It's something, and I guess for Odessa too, that's the fun part. And also I've done some research in terms of herbs, healing herbs, and what goes into making a person a psychic, what you see, the importance of various colors, which is what she sees. Yeah. And that was fun. The whole paranormal aspect of this particular character. And are there such people who can? There are, of course. But you have to still, it's part of the mystery, but it's not the whole mystery. Ultimately, it's down to character.
Yeah.
That is always character.
Yeah. For me, I got to find out how to disappear, and then how to fake the death, and how to buy a body, how to buy so I got to, and one great book, nonfiction book, Playing Dead by Elizabeth Greenwood, and follows her in her quest to disappear and her quest to start a new life. And in this, I learned that you can go down, if we all put in together right now, like some money, we can go down to the Philippines and, get an unclaimed body and an identity and start a new life just like that. Yeah, no, it was fascinating. But it's very hard to disappear. It's very hard to just,
especially now, right? Especially now in 2020
and that, you can't. And I know in Los Angeles, I don't know if it's in the East Coast like you guys, where you are, there are authorized license plate readers, automatic license plate readers. On the
Easy pass, I guess.
That's in your book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are these cameras that take pictures of license plates and the make of your car when you go through this intersection, and it into a database, and cops can go through the database and look for, and there it is, and there you are in the car, like that. And you know, of course, there's privacy issues because what do you think of my? And also, regular citizens can get these camera systems and install them in their neighborhoods. So
I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
it's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah. So learning about that was a great thing.
It's important.
What about you, Kelly?
I can use some of these things. Thank you, Rachel.
she's like, no.
My eyes were like,
yeah.
I tend to do amateur detective, and I think part of the reason why is just because I look at it more like, okay, if I was trying to figure this out, what would be the common sense way I would do it, you know, versus having to see like how a PI would do it or how a police officer would do it, you know. So I think it's probably one of the reasons why I always do kind of go with amateur detectives, you know. Not saying I don't research things, but it's not as intricate as you know, or stuff like, you know, like restaurants and things like that where I have friends, you know, and I even now I work for a media company. We do a lot of events. So like when it comes to things like events and like there's a whole red carpet and backstage scene in Hollywood Ending. That's just because for my company that I work for, we have an award show every year. And so I've actually been backstage at an award show, so I know how it goes, you know. So I kind of use a lot of what my friends and stuff that I know too. So
that's intuitive, but kind of an intuitive sense of things.
Yeah.
That's another great thing about the crime mystery community is, you know, we help each other figure that out.
That's very true.
With Gray being a PI, I went to David Corbett, who is an incredible writer and a great ally, and who was a private investigator. And
he was a private investigator.
Yeah,
and
he told me all kinds of things and how to make people talk to you. And all those things are and now she's gone with Gray crying to get information and, you know, not having a pen that works and all kinds of things. So I like that about our community. You know, we have our issues, but for the large part, if I needed to talk to a cop, I know about, you know, 12.
Right, like Bruce Cox.
Yeah, that's good. That's essential.
Yeah.
So you guys, I know with Rachel, like, how do you guys like balance like writing and everything else? Like, I know Rachel in your day job, and how do you guys balance it? And like, what's your writing process?
Well, for me, I still work full-time, a full-time job as a fundraising writer for a large medical center up in Beverly Hills. And, you know, before COVID, it was very easy. I would get to work very early and I'd write and then I'd go to work. And then I'd write at work, and then, you know, I'd be a mom, and that was that. When COVID hit, it all changed because now I was doing all my fundraising writer for a major medical center at home. And up until this point, I was very proud of having that separation of my day job and my novel writing, and now it was all on my dining room table. So it took me a while to get used to it. And it also took me, I understood what my problem was. I write in my head as I commuted.
Yes, your back brain. I call it back brain.
Right. And I wasn't commuting anymore. And so it took me a while to get into it. It took me a while to warm up. And once I recognized that, you know, it's like, okay, I'm okay then. You know? So I still get up at 5.
Oh my goodness.
And I write until 7. And I start my day job, and then lunchtime I try and do the business of writing, all that.
That's something too you think about,
yeah. And at night, then I do like other things that don't require me to think as much, but I get my writing in 5 o'clock in the morning when it's quiet and I'm fresh, and I'm in bed by 9:15. I'm out. Yeah.
What about you, Valerie?
Well, you know, years I was an editor, and but not so now. I basically write. I'm, you know, happy. I have a luxury. My kids are my daughter and my grandson, my husband, we're still together after 45 years. My husband,
amazing.
long time. He's a screenwriter, and he's also a professor at NYU. And so, I write pretty much. I can't possibly get up at 5. I mean, at 5 o'clock in the morning, my head is off to you, Rachel. I cannot. I'm still turning around. But living in it's not as hard certainly as it was when I was working full time, and then it was a kind of thing.
Yeah.
You get up, I would just work at night, and we tend to stay up late here.
Ooh, no.
But it's now it is a luxury, and I am so happy to be able to write full time. Although it never seemed, now I'm just trying to learn more about social media, and that's the issue. Is when do I have time to do this? And I'm complaining, but I write as much as I can, and I work on different things. I'm working on certainly this new book, and I do research on my historical novel for kids that that I continue to love, and will continue to. And I read as much as I possibly.
Yeah.
Kellye, at this point in my life, I'm happy to not have to work quite certainly like the two of you with a full time.
So I said I had a day job, but like similar thing where like I would commute to New York City, and I would do like a lot of the business of writing. I would do it on my phone. On my phone, I'd be emailing people, and I would like be on social media, and I'd be on Facebook and promoting on the phone, and like all my volunteer stuff like Crime Writers of Color and Pitchforks, I would do stuff on my phone, but that's taken away now, as like Rachel said. And so I try to keep it separate, where I will focus on my day job from 9 to 5. During lunch, I might do some promotion type stuff, but I have to transition to writing mode. And at this point I'm writing about 8 o'clock at night, and I just like write. I try to write like 1,500 words. And if I don't write every day, I no longer beat myself up about it. 'Cause I'm actually a writer who doesn't like to write, which there are some of us like that, and I like Walter Mosley loves writing. He's like, I write every day. I can't picture it. And I'm
Walter likes to write.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'd rather clean a toilet than write, And so, but I've got to the swing of things of 8 o'clock at night. I write until about 8 to like 9, 10 o'clock. And then I go to bed about 10 o'clock as well. Wow. So, but to me, I have to compartalize it, and so, and then weekends, sometimes I try to take weekends off, sometimes I don't. I'm on deadline right now, so, but I feel like you have to recharge.
Well, but there's also, parts of me wish that I could write novels full time, but there's something about having that day job that makes writing less precious. For my job, when I get, write this condolence letter for this donor by 2 o'clock, I write the letter by 2 o'clock. There's no, I don't feel like it, and it's not in me. You do it, and that's a great muscle to have when,
It absolutely is. When I was a journalist, we had deadlines, certainly at the magazine and with the journalists. I mean, you had a deadline, you had a certain number of words to write, 1,000 words in this by, let's say, and you did it. And there was no waiting for the muse. You simply wrote and you finished it. And that, for my first books, that was essential. They said they wanted it. I never missed a deadline. But it's, and that was, but now, frankly, in my early 70s, it's hard. I
can imagine.
Hey, give me a break. I'm just happy to, but those years, my hat's off to both of you. That's tough.
It is tough. So we actually have some Facebook questions that Jessica's putting in the doc. So I'm going to read them. So this is an emailed question from another Valerie, because Valerie, we were saying my mom's name is Valerie. And so a lot of Valerie's today. So Valerie Daniels says, are there any particular...
Valerie Daniels, hi.
Oh, do you know her?
Yes.
Are there any particular challenges you find in writing a series versus a standalone novel?
Well, the standalones were fun because you write it and then you go to something else and it was done. People would ask me, and I really loved my standalone novels, and they're different from the mysteries, and also, of course, the paranormals. But you didn't have to come. They were easier if they were finished. You went on to something else. You have to come back to the series. So I'm always making mistakes and having someone die and then remember them to bring them back, which I've also been told by, didn't she die in book number? So, and these are things that for a series, you've got to keep your hands on that. In fact, one kind person actually made a diary, or kind of a diary, a Bible for a reader, bless his heart. So, you know, oh yeah, it was just so nice of him. To take, he liked the books, he loved the series, and he took the time out of his life to show, to write it all down for me. Standalones are, you know, are fun. They're, to me, I guess I have that in common with Walter. I just love to write. And if I think more than like, so whatever I'm writing is the thing that I'm love to do. In this case, it's Glimmer, New Glimmer. But the difference is it's a different world that you create each time when you do a standalone. Yeah. Different characters, different mood, different spirit, different settings, which are always essential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, for the mysteries, you're going back to Newark again and again and again, which is fun.
I think same thing for me, where like I would like do things I thought was cute, like always being cute in the first book of the series, and I was kind of stuck. Like, I have a character named Aubrey who just is very, I created him as a foil because Dana's very like not laid back, but she's very jokey and not very serious. So he's like very serious. He actually has no sense of humor. I thought that would just be like a way to like knock heads. But he's by the third book, he was so hard to write. And I was like, why did I do this? I'm so stupid. Ugh, you know? And then the other thing is I would be, because my books have a lot of jokes in them, I would be making the same jokes. I was like, wait, I think I made this. I definitely made this joke before, you know, but then I'm doing a standalone right now, and it's weird because it's creating all new characters. Whereas with the series, I know Dana and I know Sienna and I know Emmy and I know who these people are. And it's just a way to kind of advance their lives a little bit. But this is like everyone's new. And like people like ask questions about them and I'm like, oh, I don't know the answer to that because I haven't spent time with them. People. You know? Yeah. What about you, Rach?
I would say the same what you're saying. There's a thrill with starting a new story with new people, but also, I mean, honestly, there's less pressure, you know, with series, as we all know, if they're not being read, then they don't get renewed. And if you have another one coming out, you know, it's hard to get people wanting to read our books and then to read our books in order and have them go back. And, you know, so with these standalones, I don't have that pressure or the anxiety of, oh my gosh, they're not going to read it because they didn't read the first one or the second one, you know, that, and publishers look at that stuff. That's why we don't see any more Lou Nortons.
I think it's so funny because we discussed this before too, where it's like, they always ask us like, where's your new book? And I'm like, I'm not the person in charge of the site, you know, and I feel bad because they're asking me and I'm like, I can't.
I tried.
I did try. Yeah. So
you know, I can speak for my Tamara Hale. I mean, I really, a year I tried to, but there were no takers because first of all, I had written the paranormals in between. So there was a space of 3 or 4 years and then to come back to a series. And another thing I think with publishers, if they don't have the backlist, that they don't want to invest in a new because they want the backlist.
That's what's going on.
It's like almost like selling a standalone. So
that's what happens. So I have 2 books in my series and I was supposed to have 3 and I was literally writing the 3rd book and it was 2 years ago because it was around my birthday and we very abruptly, my publisher said, we're closing the mystery imprint. And like people, the good thing is they still have the rights to my first 2 books, which means that they're available, which is great. But then people are like, where's the 3rd? And I'm like, well, another publisher is not going to want to buy it because they don't have the right. They can't buy the other 2. Yeah.
No, it's all these things, the business part of it, which is why, you know, I feel for me this is what I will do. I will work as hard as I can and certainly give what you can and hope you sell. It's not the essence of who you are as a writer.
Yeah.
Right.
It's always, you must be true to yourself in your work.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to remember, even if you don't have time.
So the next question is from Lillian. It's from Facebook. Hi, Lillian. So she wants to know, what is the average time it takes us to write a book? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Is it more?
It's 9 months for me, like a pregnant lady.
Baby. Like a baby.
the baby. For me, it depends on if I'm on deadline, if I have a deadline or not. Like if you give me a deadline, I usually edit. But if you don't give me a deadline, I'm like, la,
what's this over there?
It's so funny. I've been with my agent since for like 6 years, and she's like, "Oh, now you tell me you need a deadline." I'm like, "Well, sorry, you know." So this current one, I had the idea, I think, in late 2018, and I was writing it on and off. So, so yeah. What about you, Valerie?
About 10 months, 9, 10 months, 11 months.
You got, whatever, guys, whatever.
Yeah. But that's not pushing. Sometimes it's, if you push it, and if you get deadline, you can't miss your deadline.
Yeah.
And years ago, I got caught up with, I was doing 2 different kinds of books, with I forget which 2 they were anyway. And I ended up with 2 deadlines, like within 6 months. What possessed me? I felt it must have been in my 40s or 50, well, 50. I was younger than this, certainly. Could never do that
right now.
Kill me. But I think that at that point, it usually is around 10 months.
Yeah.
9, 10 months.
Okay, so the next question is from Peg, but she's using her husband's Facebook account. So hello to Peg and to Marcus. I know it might be hard to choose, but do you have a favorite novel of yours that you'd recommend to readers who have just discovered you? Pick a favorite, baby.
The one you're working on, I think, is the one. Or the one you've just done.
Yeah. I was saying Now She's Gone, which
Now She's Gone. That sounds really exciting. I
will say I've read a lot of Rachel. I think probably most of Rachel's books, and they're all amazing. But I think Now She's Gone is definitely Rachel.
I think I hit my million. I definitely did. So yeah, pick that one up and then read backwards.
Yeah. So for me, since I have a series that's published, I'll say Hollywood Homicide because it's the first one. I loved
Hollywood Homicide.
Yeah, that was fun.
All the LA.
A lot of fun.
But Valerie, did you pick one?
Well, it's hard, each has its own audience.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that folks will read A Glimmer of Death. It is a different kind of book for me. If you start with the Tamara Hills, there are 9 of them, 8 or 9 of them. I always thought the paranormals were pretty good. The Savannah Wells books, and I think they got, because the time I wrote under with pen name, big mistake. I should have kept my name when I wrote it.
What made you decide to do that?
Oh, it wasn't the publishers.
As a publisher?
They were afraid that people would be looking for a mystery. And so
because of the name.
But the problem was, I think they don't think they understood Black readers and people will loyal to you. And today I get readers who say, I didn't know you wrote those 2 books. And that's the problem. Interesting. Yeah, and they were fun, the Savannah Wells books, and a lot of readers really wanted me to go back to the characters, which But I think A Glimmer of, I'm interested in knowing what people say about this book and what their response is. And When Angels Mourn, which will be published, self-published at some point.
That's the new Tamara Hale. We were talking about it before.
And I think it's a beautiful cover. It's on my website actually. That won't come out for a year or so, but I'm hoping that at that point it will.
It comes out in January, right?
Right. No, Glimmer of Death is January. When Angels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, will be about 2 years because I couldn't do it within the same time frame as the cozies. But but to me, as I said, every one has a certain gift. Just certainly was a gift to me, and hopefully readers will take it to heart and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think for me, the first book, I like the plot better, but the second
When
book,
Death Comes Stealing.
I'm talking about from my books. So for Hollywood Homicide, I think I like the plot better, but I think in Hollywood Ending, I think it's funnier. So
I don't know. I think I loved Hollywood Homicide because it was the first time I got to see 2 Black girls tripping around LA looking for Black people. It'll always have a special place in my heart.
It's a joy to read. Yeah, just reminding me. Setting was so good. Yeah. And I don't know LA, like you all know LA, but I do have friends who were there and who live there because my husband's in the business and my nephew's in the business. But it's a very, it was fun. I could see what you were talking about.
And it's so funny. Hollywood Homicide took a year to sell. And it got rejected by pretty much every publisher before Midnight Ink and Terry Bischoff took a chance on it. And I didn't have a lot of edits in the book and ended up getting winning those awards, but it got starred reviews. It was debut of the month for Library Journal. And it was interesting because I think the reason why it got rejected was I think publishers were afraid of a book with a Black woman, and also this didn't hit all the cozy tropes. But then I think because it was different in that it had a Black woman as a main character, and it wasn't hitting all the cozy, like, oh, there's no cat and there's no small town and there's no this and you know what I'm saying? Readers like that, so I think that was the irony, was that like what editors were afraid of is what readers were responding to,
Well, that's what we were saying earlier about how we don't get to do these things, and how if you don't fit in the box. I mean, I'm still, to this, up until when I was shopping my last novel, still meeting rejection, even despite it all, it happens. So
it's important to tell writers out there, writers who want to salvage it, just to keep working at it and keep really trying to learn your craft and read as much as you can, and just to perfect that aspect of it. And my God, you want to sell, but it's not you. The main thing is to write as well as you possibly can write. And that, I think, is because ultimately that's what has to face you.
Right.
Face is your book.
Yeah. So there's another couple more questions from Facebook. This is from Cynthia. She wants to know which has been our favorite characters to write.
I love Gray because she gets to have like the hardness of the Lou Norton character, but also this vulnerability that Lou does not have. She gets to be a mess in some ways, and I get to help her have work her toward a happy ever after. So
was that important to you to make sure she was a mess?
Yes, because especially compared to Isabel Lincoln, who is so slick and smart and savvy. I wanted Gray to be up against someone who is an incredible chess player.
So who's Isabel Lincoln for people who haven't read the book?
Isabel Lincoln is the missing woman that Gray is charged to find. This is her first case after looking for a lost Chihuahua. This is her first human case to find this guy's girlfriend, Isabel Lincoln. And there's something about Isabel that's kind of off, and Gray is not sure what's going on with her. Not sure if she wants to disappear because she's scared of her boyfriend or other reasons. So Isabel's incredible. She's smart and she's savvy, and she's Gray's foil in many ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Valerie, do you have a favorite character?
I always love writing Tamara, but I am enjoying this new book, a character named Aunt Phoenix, who's
yes.
And she's the aunt who is the expert on all things paranoia. Well, not she's a little paranoid too, but it's kind of this thing. I just have fun writing her character and coming up with things, and also with Odessa, it's been fun to write. And the more you write, the more you find parts of these characters and layers of these characters to explore, and frankly, to excite me as a writer. So when you're with, so it's like loving the one you're with kind of thing. You just, you really kind of fall in love with them a little bit, then you go on to the next one. So that's, I guess it's like a child. You love each one, their own particular special parts.
It's so I was telling you guys that I took a year to sell my book, and one of the notes we got was that Dana, not that she wasn't likable, but she, how it is. It's like they didn't get her. And I think she was super, she would say kind of like really sarcastic things in her mind, not to people,
random things.
Yeah. And so one of the things we did is we did a little bit of a rewrite, me and my agent. And so I just took all the really mean things she said. I gave to Sienna, who's like her best friend.
I see. I like Sienna too.
I think so. Sienna to me is like I think my favorite character to write.
Yeah, I can understand that.
She can be the sarcastic person, and she doesn't have to be like, the perfect Black lady. So so I think she's fun to write for me. I think the one I hate to write, I was already said is Aubrey, because he's so like formal and official and so serious. But I think Sienna to me is fun to write. So, and Valerie, I actually had a question for you. So one of the things I was struggling with my series was that it was so hard to I guess keep it fresh with the same characters. And I guess too, Rachel, with you, because you had 4 books in the Lou series. So like, how did you do that with Tamara? And I guess Rachel, with you and Lou, like, how did you like keep this character fresh after years and years and years?
Yeah. It's hard, and that's another reason I left for a kind of a hot minute to do the standalones. I just needed a little break, and then I would come back to it. And so that, I think, is for me anyway, varying the kinds of books I was writing, and then going back to the Tamara Hales, and then doing another book and going back. Of course, I waited too long between the Tamara Hales, but I think that it's hard. That's a hard part for me of writing a series, was the character, to not keep repeating yourself, to not having lines that the character has said before.
Yeah.
And so taking a break for a while was good for me. I hope that we'll see what happens with this Odessa Jones. I hope it'll go. I'd love.
I was going to ask, because you guys are both now doing series again, because Rachel has a series coming out with Thomas and Mercer. So like, having done a series that went for like 4 or 9 books, like how are you guys using that to inform your new series?
Well, I hope the one thing, I'm keeping notes on every character that mistakes I did that people needed to say, and that character just changed. You know, and one, I had the character actually had the gall to have her come back, and she was mistaken. If you read them, you'll see that's right. So that, but so you keep notes on it for me. So I know, and I have, this is the second one I'm working on now, so it's no big problem yet. If they buy another one, hopefully, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
The response, it's fun. Hopefully, I'll try something else.
And for me, I would just give Lou new types of crimes to solve.
Yes.
And that way, I don't know how she'd act, with house fire, a whole family is killed and the husband is surviving. I don't know how she's going to have act with, investigating this hoarder's life. And so I tend to, in the Lou series especially, have, well, I kind of do that with every book, have this kind of running second story where she's experienced something similar to the crime she's investigating. And that way I get
secondary
to
story.
Her life. Yeah. And
it's a good point.
Also, exploring this crime. So.
That's a very good, I know with the Tamara, certainly it was the son, raising the son. And of course, there was also, of course, the love interest with the split between Basil and Jake. So that was always constantly the thing, and there's always something new happening in those areas.
Yeah.
With this Odessa Jones, it's only, I've written the first, we'll see what happens with the second. It's not quite the same issue yet. It may be. So far it's very fresh to write. And I'm discovering new parts of this character the more I write. And that's fun. It's finally beginning to understand and discover. The more you write, the more you know about the character.
Yeah. I have a question too that's not on the list. Do all of your books take place in the same world?
Well, Jersey, for me, Jersey, I mean, it's certainly Newark, and they do actually, and I think the standalones are actually kind of like kind of a Montclair, New Jersey, kind of a suburban Jersey. This one is kind of the Jersey, but I guess they are. I do. They get into Jersey. They're all Jersey. I'm a Jersey writer.
For me, they definitely do. In this book coming out next year, These Toxic Things, Vince Rader, who is Gray's boss and now she's gone, he's mentioned in These Toxic Things.
Oh, yeah.
So it all is
all intertwined
and in the same neighborhoods and everything. Yeah.
I don't know if mine are. I don't know. I think for me, like, to me, like the Hollywood and my books is such a it's exaggerated Hollywood. Yeah. So I don't know if this current book, it's just more serious. It's like more of like a Megan Miranda, Lori Raider Day type book, takes place in the same world. Maybe I have to think about my own question. I guess I'll let you guys know. I'll send you an email. So the next question is actually for Rachel. And it's from Katrina. Hi, Katrina.
Hi, Katrina.
And this is a very detailed question. She wants to know the sequence with the no pin. Is that from life? Or did you make it up? And she was like, I was filled with admiration for you, was sticking with it. It rang so true. So there's a sequence in And Now She's Gone where she has like her first interview with the guy that she's working for, and her pen runs out of ink.
Yes. So that has happened to me. In my day job, I interview, the one prior to this one, I would have to interview cancer scientists and, these very important researchers about what they do so that I could go back and write fundraising material for them. And yes, I have been to several meetings where my pen has run out and they're looking at me like, okay, Black, you're here with me and your pen. So that's happened to me. I've had a fancy pen, those pens, the Live Stripe pens that record, and the battery has run out. This
is consistent. Rachel's consistently.
But fortunately, like Ray, I have 600 pens in my purse along with the 600 lipsticks, so that I'm never, But I've definitely, it's happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of people. So thanks for that question. It's true life.
All right, so the next question is from Lillian. Are any of you being affected by COVID to the point that you see the pandemic being the subject of a future book? And I'm going to add on to that to say, how do you guys think you're going to address the pandemic in your books now, like the ones you're working on?
In These Toxic Things, the pandemic does come up in the epilogue. But I think as a mystery and crime writer that it's my duty to address it, because right now there are women trapped in houses with men who are,
that's a very good point.
There are children trapped in houses with parents who don't want them there. And if we're anything, that's what we write about, whether it's a cozy, whether it's noir, whatever it is, that's what we do. And so I will be writing, once we all figure this kind of thing out, it will have to, for me, it will be a part of what I write because it's life.
I think it'll come in too, but won't be the purpose of the book. But it'll be certainly a part of an important aspect of what's going on, the sense of being sheltered, the sense. But since I'm in the midst of still writing this book, the new one, the old one, obviously, it won't be in that one. And it's not going to be in Glimmer of Death. But we'll see how it plays out because I'm, of that age where we are fearful. A lot of my friends were all scared to go out. My daughters, don't you dare go out of this house.
Yeah, it's a serious.
And it's very protective of me and my husband, which is interesting because they're really when they were teenagers. Now it's them telling me, don't you leave.
Same with my granddad. My granddad's 90 years old, and having this battle of people are they're like teenagers where he's like, I'm going out, and I'm like, well, I don't want you to go out. But I think my mother I think has been a target one time in the past 6 months because her husband's the one who goes to Costco for. She sits in the car.
Yeah, it's a role reversal for my adult daughter. My grandson has his 2 cents worth. So this is an interesting. Of course, my character is much, much younger than me. Odessa's not my age. Closer to
question for you, Valerie. So with the Tamara Hale book that you're going to self-publish, does it take place in now time, or is it?
It's contemporary. Yeah, it does.
Oh,
okay.
But
by the time I finally publish it, who knows what? It's probably in 2 years I'll self-publish it. There are other things, actual issues that I have to wait to resolve themselves before I publish it.
So I didn't answer the question. So the book I'm working on now is tricky where it takes place in current times, but it's tied to an event that happens 2 years ago. So it's kind of to me, it's weird to not address the pandemic in there. So what I just did is I set the book in 2019. So that's how I'm dealing with
ways around it. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, and then an idea that I have, I'm actually gonna try to use face mask as a plot point. So we'll see. But it's so tricky because we're in the midst of it,
right?
So it's kind of you don't know how this might end 2021. So we don't know. So it's kind of hard to want to write about it when you don't know
what the ending is.
Yes, the ending.
God help us! Everyone vote. That's the main thing.
Yes, please.
That's the main message. Vote.
Next question. So this is a question from, I'm going to say the name. Is it Shake? When is the next Dana Anderson book coming out, Kellye? So I mentioned my publisher actually closed down. And so right now the book is a file on my computer. And hopefully one day it does come out because I kind of explore Emmy more, who's one of her friends, and then I realized this. So people, there's the character Aubrey. People want Dana to get with him, but In my mind, Aubrey's gay, and I just never mentioned it. And so I think in that third book, I'm going to finally mention that Aubrey's gay.
He will come out. Okay.
Cool. But very casually to her. And then the next question is from Susanna, and she's like, what time period is Valerie's historical novel set? Would love to hear more about that.
Well, I'm still working on it, and it's a young adult novel, and it's set in during, I guess it's around 1860, before the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of, that was fun to research, but it's nowhere near finished.
Mhm.
And again, it's for young adults, and but that will take. I'll be finishing this after I finish the other mystery, and we'll see what goes on. But it's an idea that has always excited me, writing historical fiction, and just researching things, doing the research again, historical. If I could have been a historian, I would have been a historian. But that's like, no, I'm not even ready almost to talk about it. But it's been fun to do, and finding a teenager's voice, particularly since my grandson, well, he's 13. This character's around the same age, so we'll see. Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to go back to Jessica's question. I think we're done with the Facebook question. So she wants to know, do you have any books that you're reading that you absolutely love and want to recommend to viewers?
Well, I will say I love your two books, so I recommend those definitely, really. And I'm looking forward to this new one by you. I have to pick that up, get that, Rachel.
It's really
exciting.
Really,
Yeah,
it's like
really sounds exciting.
I think it's like my favorite book of the
Yeah, you mentioned it was your favorite. I'm reading not a mystery, but I've been really reading, which I must recommend to everyone because it's just really blown me away. Is Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast, which is really, I don't know, it's a really fine writing, and she's just an amazing writer. But it's not a mystery, of course, but it's just for our own general information. Yeah, it's good. Let me see, but I've written some in preparation for this question. I like who else I like is Louise Penny.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, she's good. She's really, I love her characterizations. I love the way she writes about food. And so that's if I could, you just feel like you're sitting down to a meal with her. But those, but certainly your book, Tracy Clark's book, I'm enjoying.
That I was
really, I love Chicago. I did a stint at Columbia College as a guest author, and years ago, and fell in love with Chicago. And of course, LA. It's but the two of you.
Tracy Clark writes a PI series called Cast Rain, set in Chicago. I feel like to be I think she's definitely like she's the successor to be Tamara Hale, and I'm actually reading her new one, which is the series she has 3 fourth ones coming out. It won the Mary Higgins, the Sue Grafton Memorial Award.
Oh, that's right, I read that. Yeah,
and I'm reading the 3rd one, and it's called What You Don't See, and it's just Tracy's just such an amazing writer.
She is a fine writer,
and she's the character of Cass is just so great, and so in the book, what you don't see, she's kind of has to bodyguard this kind of bitchy woman who runs like a publisher, and I just love that she doesn't she's not usually they'll have the character back down or you're like because she's bitchy, but no, Cass, whatever the lady says to Cass, that's not cool. I'm not gonna let you talk to me like that, and so it's just Tracy's such an amazing writer, and the characters such a great characters, and the stories are such great stories. I definitely suggest you. They're by Kensington. I think the series is the Chicago Mystery Series, but definitely if you like Rachel's books and you like Valerie's books, their PI books and their top books, definitely you'll love Tracy's.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And Rachel, do you have any?
Oh, that's right. Everything they just said, but also Jess Lowry, who is a writer from Minnesota. She writes these incredibly creepy, wonderful books. And she has one that's coming out in January called Bloodline. And it reminds me of Rosemary's Baby, but without the paranormal, but still that kind of creepy, I'm pregnant, who are these strange people kind of. And she writes fiction like it's true crime.
Okay.
And so pick up her book. She's a great small town creep type of writer. So,
wow. Okay. Jess Lowry.
So there's actually another Facebook question that I think I missed or it just popped in. It's from Sandra. And she says, I've read a few cozies that are set in urban areas and feature POC characters. Is the cozy genre expanding?
I hope so.
I guess so. I think so. To say, we'll see.
Yeah, I think there is a I think concerted effort to do so. The idea of own voices is the idea that a person, the author of a certain background, writes about a character of that same background, and you think that would be an obvious thing, but it's not. Sometimes, especially in publishing, they would rather have published the book by the white guy writing the black woman than the black woman writing the black woman. So that's why own voices had to happen. And so I think there's now a concerted effort by publishers. I know it's at least with Berkeley to do they have a whole own voices millennial directive going on, and so yes, they're expanding. Mia Mansala has Arsenic and Adobo coming out next year, which is really good. It's a Filipino American main character, and it has culinary. So if you like to eat, it's definitely great. So there's definitely Jennifer Chow has her Sassy Cat series. Abby Van Diver has her ice cream series. So there's definitely a lot of diverse cozies coming out in the next year.
Go to Crime Writers of Color. We have a whole website that has
That's really important.
Every one of us, their titles there. It's a great link. What's it? See, Crime Writers of Color?
CrimeWritersColor.com, and there's a books page that Marla Bradeen does for us. So yeah, definitely check it out, because if you like police, if you like paranormal, whatever you like, we have it by that, and we also have it by ethnicity too.
Yeah,
it's a really important site. Thank you so much for.
I did not do the site, so thank you to Robert Justice.
No, but just thank you for being both of you. I didn't mean it.
Yeah. So,
thank you.
So what is the number one piece of advice you'd give an aspiring mystery crime author?
Read.
That's a good one.
Absolutely. And record everything. I web clip into my Evernote. I take pictures. All of it. Just pay attention. Open your eyes. Listen to people, how they talk to each other, how they wander around a store. Be nosy.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. You're right. I would read. You're right. Reading is first. Observation. Really, really get those skills together. Observing, listening to what people say, to the rhythms they use, how they talk, and look at it everywhere for stories. Never throw anything away, like you were saying. You never know when something is going to pop up and you can use it.
Everything's material.
So for my thing, I definitely say read, but I always say read as a writer, not as a reader, which is you're analyzing the scenes and you're seeing okay, how, when does she, how much of this scene, how does this advance the story? Did that work? Did it not work? And I think another good piece of advice for dialogue is to read it out loud.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then and when you read it out loud, you can actually, because I think authors, it doesn't sound like people talk. So when you read it out loud, you can be like, okay, that actually is not, no one really talk like that. So I think
exactly. Yeah, that's very important.
Definitely it. And then I think we're pretty much finished. So there's 2 closing questions. What's your favorite library memory?
Oh, mine is going into the library when I'm far too young to be checking out stuff that I probably shouldn't. And that's loading up on Jackie Collins.
Oh my God, 13, I fell in love.
And V.C. Andrews, and just taking them all and reading them all and just disappearing into these worlds. I absolutely, oh my gosh, I worked my library card out. It was limp by the time I left that library.
So my aunt's a librarian, and she's been a librarian for her whole life. And so she actually got me a job as a page, and my first job was a library page. And I was in high school, and me being me, I lasted for about 2 months or 2 weeks. I was like, I don't really want to work, so I just quit. But that was fun. What about you, Valerie? Do you have a favorite library memory?
Many, many years ago, when I was a young girl, I lived in a predominantly white town called Ashford, Connecticut. And I used to go, and some people were kind, some people weren't. And I would go to the library, and the librarian kind of took me under her wing. I still remember going in. It was an old library. And Agatha Christie, I discovered Agatha Christie, and I went through all those books, and that I think was certainly one of the first loves. Edgar Allan Poe, just reading voraciously everything. Yeah. And that I think for any writer, that's why we all those writers who are honing your craft, reading is the most important thing you can do. And if you have a kid who reads all the time, she's probably going to be a writer. So you better be nice to her because she'll remember everything.
Yes, I did. I mean, yes.
Yes, we will. We'll get you back in our books.
Yeah.
You know, it's my mother is a huge reader. Yeah. And so like when I was little, like that's how I discovered Walter. That's how I discovered you, Valerie, because she would read a lot of crime fiction, and she would read Jackie Collins, and she would just let me whatever I wanted to read. I could just go on the shelves and pick it, and I could read it, you know. And I think that, like you said, that really helped, the fact that I could just do that, you know, and she passed that down to me. So so I think the final question is, which I think we discussed, but we can definitely wrap it up. Like, what's next for you guys? Plug, ladies.
My next book, These Toxic Things, is coming out next August, and it's about a young digital archaeologist named Mickey who curates memories for this tech company. And she writes, you know, these little stories to go around your favorite pictures of your honeymoon and things like that. And she's working on the memories of a curiosity shop owner who winds up dead. And so she's still trying to write these little stories, vignettes for her dead client, while trying to figure out what is up with these vignettes, what's up with these items, these memories, while also dealing with her own origin story, who she is, who she thought she was, what her parents know and what they haven't told her. So it's about family secrets, memories.
Secrets. Always good subjects. Family secrets, memories, everything, the basis of everything. Well, A Glimmer of Death, of course, will be out in January. It can be pre-ordered on Amazon.com. And I'm working on a new Odessa Jones, and that will be, you know, don't have a name for it yet, but you know, it will definitely be coming out.
Hey.
And then so I don't have a book coming out, but I'm working on a standalone that's more domestic suspense. I think I mentioned it in the beginning, you know, and it's kind of about this woman who's trying to figure out why her estranged sister died 2 blocks from her house, 4 a.m, and like, why was she coming to see her, you know? And so I'm really excited about it. I finished the first draft. It sucks, but I finished the first draft, you know, and so hopefully that'll eventually be amazing and eventually be in stores one day. So I'm going to read some of Jessica's closing remarks. So pretend I'm Jessica. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to Kellye Garrett, Rachel Howzell Hall,
thank you, Kellye, for stepping in and taking in. Thank you, Kellye.
For being here today, of course. And thank you also to Mysterious Galaxy for partnering with us on this chat and getting the word out. You can order books by the authors from Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. Books by the authors are available for checkout via Overdrive, Hoopla, and CloudLibrary. And then they actually have another, although we were the first chat, we're not the last, they have another mystery author chat out November 7th at 4 p.m. with Jennifer J. Chow, who we mentioned, and also Abby Collette, Abby Van Diver, who we also mentioned. They're 2 really amazing cozy writers who write Own Voices cozies. And so definitely check those books out. I think Jennifer's is Sassy Cat and Abby's is Ice Cream Shop, maybe. And we hope to see you here on Facebook for our One Book, One San Diego virtual author program. The first of our new pop culture panel series, Japanese American Voices in Graphic Novels, which will take place on October 27th at 3 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time. We won't see us, but you'll see Jessica.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you all for coming. Bye. Bye, ladies.